So here's an absolute value function. F of x is 2/3 x minus 3 plus 5. How do we decide where this v is going to have its point? Well, let's think first about just the absolute value. The v on this graph has its point at 0, 0. We saw that in the last video. And that makes sense, right? Because if I have a big negative number, its absolute value will be a big positive number. Then as I come in and my negative number gets closer to 0, its absolute value gets smaller and smaller. But then my negative number gets all the way to 0. And now it's going away from 0 again as it goes through the positive numbers. So it makes sense that this would turn around when x is 0. I think that's my key insight, actually. I think my graph will always turn around where I'm taking the absolute value of 0. Right, that's where we go from taking the absolute value of a tiny negative number, which is a tiny positive number, to taking the absolute value of a tiny positive number, which is still a positive number. So in this example, that happens when x minus 3 is 0. Add 3 on both sides. That happens when x is 3. How do I find the y-coordinate of that point? I just plug in. But I don't really even need to do that, do I? I'll have 3 minus 3 in my absolute value sign here, which I will always have if I chose the right x. The absolute value of 0 is 0. Multiplying by 0 gets me 0. So the vertical coordinate of my v point is just this number. At the point of the v, f of x equals 5. In general, the y-coordinate at the point of our v will be, well, whatever is left after the absolute value part is 0. Because if we found the right x for the point of our v, the absolute value part is 0. Okay, so in this example, the point is 3, 5. We'll need 2 points on either side. Looking at the fact that I have thirds here, I think I want to go 3 away. We'll have 2/3 times the absolute value of 0 minus 3 plus 5. That'll be 2/3 times the absolute value of negative 3. Absolute value of negative 3 is 3. Now I'm ready for this multiplication. 2/3 times 3, that's just 2. Copy the plus 5. 2 plus 5 is 7. So that gives me the point x is 0, y is 7. And finally, on the other side, we'll take f of 6. Plugging in 6 gets me 7 out again. So my other point will be 6, 7. You know something? I think that this had better inform the way I draw my axes. Right, I need my y-axis to go up to 7. I need my x-axis to go up to 6. But I'm not going to need any negative y values. I don't need my x-axis to go that negative either. I can plot my points now. I found 3, 5. 3, 5. That was my point. 0, 7, and 6, 7. Now I'm ready to take my ruler and draw, making sure I don't extend my lines at all beyond this v point, of course. And there it is, my graph of y equals f of x. I'm going to have you try one of these as well. Let g of x be negative 2 times x minus 1. graph y equals g of x. Pause the video and try this now. Okay, so the first question is, where will the point of the v be? And it'll happen where this thing in the absolute value is 0. So where x minus 1 is 0. Add 1 to both sides, and I get x equals 1. What will y be? Well, when this absolute value is 0, this whole term vanishes, and I'm left with 2. So my first point will be 1, 2. And now I need to pick 2 more values of x. 1 on either side of x equals 1. So I'm going to try 0 and 2. I'll have negative 2 times 0 minus 1 plus 2 is negative 2 times the absolute value negative 1 plus 2. So this will be negative 2 times 1 plus 2. This is just negative 2. We have negative 2 plus 2. That's 0. And because I ran out of space to the right, I'm going to put my point here. My x is 0. My y I found was also 0. Alright, how about g of 2? That'll be negative 2 times the absolute value of 2 minus 1 plus 2. That's negative 2 times the absolute value of 1 plus 2. That's just negative 2 times 1 plus 2. So just like up here, that works out to 0. This point will be 2, 0. Those values don't seem too far out of line. So I'm just going to draw my ordinary axes. Where are my points? I have 1 at 1, 2. And that's going to be the very tip of my V. Then I have 1 at 0, 0. And I have 1 at 2, 0. Now I can draw this point down through here. Start at this point, go down through here. And that's it. That's how I graph an absolute value function.